All right, well, good. Welcome to our Boulder Street Conversations. This is our second time having a guest, and so we're excited today to have Tina with us. We started a class last week called Soul Care, and so after session one, that Tina, you're teaching, we just had conversation and thought, man, this would be a great opportunity to just talk more about it. And so the point of this dialogue, this conversation is just to dig a little bit deeper into the messages, the teachings that we've had at Boulder Street, and then how do we apply those to our lives. So Tina, welcome. So glad you're here.
Thank you for inviting
obviously,
me.
we have Amy here as well. Tina, can you maybe just share a little bit, give us a little bit who you are, as well as what you do, and maybe your heart in the soul care class, and how it got started, and what you're hoping people get out of it.
So professionally, I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I right now work in private practice, and I've been doing that for almost 10 years now, but I've been in the field for about 20. So many years of listening, many years of gaining understanding, many years of just holding space for really hurt, wounded souls. And so I've had what I consider the pleasure to be able to understand what that is like, as well as with my own journey as well too. And so that's part of the class, is what inspiration of the class is what I have experienced personally with the Lord in my own journey in life, in hardships and grief, in failure, as well as sitting with others. And in those years, I think one thing that, as I was starting to see fruit in the work that I was doing, and just so grateful to see God's presence show, and to see healing and to see restoration, not only in my life, now seeing it bear fruit in others' life, I was like, man, I want more of this. I want more people to experience this, especially seeing needs in the church. And I just remember praying one day when I was cleaning that I was like, God, how do we bridge a gap between the church? And it may not be like direct counseling, but what are other ways that we could bring healing and restoration to the church? Yeah.
I love it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Amy, I know you've been talking with Tina for almost I don't know how long time, just about this happening. And so maybe if you want to share some of what began those conversations and how we got to this point.
Yeah, I think just the, being a pastor, having multiple counselor friends, having multiple of my own counselors, and just having conversation about, like, what does it look like? What does counseling look like and discipleship look like? And how could those come together? And how could we maybe, Tina, like, how would you equip people, to do to know how to care for their soul, so that, not that we need counselors less, but just to, like, how could we help take care of ourselves? And not be, like, so dependent. So just how to do that, well. So that was kind of some of the questions and some of the desires. And so,
And I think just even as a church, trying to figure out the role of counseling, the role of discipleship, where we grow as Christians, and what can we do in practices on our own. And so I loved it. Why don't we do this to start? I'd love to maybe hear you guys we're looking back at last week was week one. Maybe your big takeaway. So Amy, something that stood out to you. Tina, I'd love to maybe hear how you felt as the communicator in the room. What did you feel? And then we'll go from there. I think for me, one of the things you said was just the idea that as humans, we are not expected, or God didn't create us to know everything, but we are created to know the one who does. And so just even this, like, as we're continuing to try and grow and get better, we don't have to have all the answers, but we get to know the one who knows all. I just thought that was a beautiful way of saying it. So that was one of the things that stood out to me.
Give me a minute, maybe come back to me.
Oh,
Maybe like Tina, just like if you could give just a quick, if you're able to, kind of summary of like kind of what you covered last week.
Yeah. So last week was kind of packed, but first in starting of God's desire that we come to Him in knowing our soul, like His desire that in God's character we looked at God first being a loving God and it being an intimate loving God, right? Looking at this. The scripture that says He is the lover of my soul. That is intimate. There's this intimate God who is desiring for us to come to Him. Looking at God as one who unifies and wants oneness with us. And so looking at, wow, when we have, this divided soul, when we have confusion, when we have loss, wow, God wants to bring us in and for us to feel oneness with Him. And then also God is one who wants us to feel belonging to Him, that He calls us near and He accepts us as we are. And I think that's one point, because a lot of times what I do see sometimes coming into counseling is I know these things from God, know these things about God, but there's distance to me. I can't come near. I have to clean up. I'm not, there's even a belief sometimes that I'm not accepted. I have to clean up. I have to get right. But God's saying, no, even though, right, He still loved us when we were sinners. There's no other love like that on this planet. That, we first started with looking at, wow, these characters of God, this is why we could come near. This is His desire for us. This is what He created for us in our human beings to lean onto in the weariness of our soul. So that was just like the character of God in that way.
Yeah.
And then we looked at, what is the soul? It's our mind, our will, our emotions. And how those are interconnected, as well as, they connect with our body. Our body is constantly giving us signals throughout our day about where we're at with each of those. But what happens is we experience life. And in experienced life, we get that kind of confusion. We experience just weariness and just day-to-day. I talked about just day-to-day life, all the choices we have to make, right? We get weary in that. How many things do we have to do when we, wake up in the morning? And there is just a general weariness we could feel in life that God wants to partner with us. He wants to come in and bring comfort and saying, yeah, I know it's hard. Lean on me, right? And then we talk also about in the class of, I mentioned, then there are things that impact us really deep to our soul. And those are things that cause the word I refer to in psychology as disintegration, that we feel this separation from ourself that makes it harder for us to know how to care for our soul at times. And to understand what we may be going through. And those things are, could be experiencing grief or loss, having a traumatic childhood or event, experiencing trauma, having, being in sin. And I talk about what John Mark Comer says is sin that we experience, but also sin that has been done to us and is around us. Also just caring for sometimes our own chronic health that we may have, or being a caregiver of others. There's a lot more, but those are signals to us, both personally and as a community, of saying, hey, that might require more care. And let's seek that care in the Lord,
Yes.
community,
Yeah.
in maybe services around. And God wants to help us through that, as well as understanding, yes, God can respond in a miracle moment. He definitely can. but we also may have moments that we might need extra care, and that's okay. And he wants to be with us just the same, as if it's, the power of his Spirit moving.
What do you think? So defining soul as mind, will, and emotions. And I think of caring for those areas. I'd be interested to just hear what you think of like caring for your mind, your thought life, casting your cares on the Lord, taking every thought captive. I think you talked that. I think caring for your emotions. I think that's something that we would talk about and in counseling and what are you, getting in touch with your emotions. What does it look like? What is the will? Caring for your will.
Yeah.
And like, what does that mean? And how would you what would you say in terms of that part of the soul?
Yeah. And so when we defined will, we said, that's the center that we're making our choices, but it's also connected to our passions and our longings. And so in caring for the will is really tapping into identifying what am I willing and how am I being driven? What are my passions and desires, and how am I being driven by those? So we look at, in the class, tapping into what are some of those core longings that the soul has that then we will from that place. And so we talk about being able to identify those, being able, we talk about love and surrenderance in knowing, where I'm at in our will, that is a huge part of it, of being able to also know when we may have to surrender our will as well too.
Good.
So that's a little, I don't want to give too much.
No, I like
that's
it.
like a little bit too much.
That's where we're going.
Yeah.
So good. Well, what do you feel like? That's such a good summary. So good. What do you feel like you weren't able to cover in the class that you're like, I really.
There's so much.
more.
That's what you
There's
said.
more.
Yeah.
There's so much, especially in this first week. Felt like it was packed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's unpack it a little bit.
And that was like the edited version too.
Right. That's what I'm saying. You mentioned that. So
Yeah. So the part that I didn't get to,
Okay.
that I kind of did have to cut is, I talked about psychological where we may get stuck on that disintegration. I talk about what fires together, wires together, and how our brain grows and make connections. And that's why both it may be hard to make changes, but then also we can grow. And the part that was missing was, where do we get stuck in our own spirituality, in our own development of faith? And so that was the part that I wasn't able to get to, that I actually think would be a good discussion here, especially having both of you here now. And so there were a few that I did have listed where, this is where we get stuck. And so you want me to?
Yes, let's go there.
Let's do it.
So I think of where I have come into, especially, listening to just one-on-one with individuals, hearing the story, where are people at in faith, even in, mentoring, and being able to walk with people in that way of having more, open relationship of dialogue, is one thing that I've come across is, I may get stuck because I feel like I have to have it all together now. And the realization of the sanctification process is that, and I remember one of my mentors telling me, Tina, it sounds like you think that like you're gonna finally arrive. And I was just like, well, yeah, I want to arrive. I want to have it all now. I want to have all of the knowledge of the Lord. I want to have all the giftings. I want to have it all together now. Yes, you're right. I do. What's wrong with that? And she's like, yeah, no, that's not how the walk with the Lord is. And I felt this like deep disappointment, but then I actually felt, as I gave myself time, such a relief. Because in moments, realizing, wow, there was maybe striving, or there was maybe like this, I have to have it all together, that God's not expecting that from me. He wants me to come as I am with what I'm experiencing now, the rawness of my emotions, the rawness of my thoughts, or the confusion of my thoughts, and definitely my stubborn will, because we've been journeying with that one. So so that is sometimes what I see in coming up of there being like, why is this not happening now? Or even, wow, God, I'm used to, this is how God speaks, what I'm used to God speaking to me. I'm not hearing him now. What do I do with that? So trying to sort that out as we're maybe experiencing in the counseling session, anxiety, or, wow, there's major conflict in my family and I have, monk's wounds that I'm dealing with. But now I'm also feeling this, like, I can't hear from God, or why isn't this happening now?
Okay.
Yeah.
So good.
I think of kind of in the character arc of Paul, we see early on where he's able to list his accomplishments and his achievements. And as he gets older, you see this chief among sinners. And it's almost like as he matures, he is more familiar with his weakness. And we want to arrive. We want to be like, I'm here, I'm healthy, I'm good. And there's something about abiding in the Lord for the long haul that actually we start to realize, oh no, I have more to work on, and there's more in there. And I think that is a key element, realizing there isn't a finish line. I mean, meaning that we won't ever really arrive at like, oh, I'm the perfect Christian, I'm the perfect disciple. That actually is what creates the tender heart. And maybe in some of our young and youthful zeal where we think we're going to achieve it, but it's actually in that process and in that growth where we can get more tender throughout the decades, rather than more bitter or hard or whatever. So I think the sooner we can realize I'm a work in progress, and it also, I think it helps me with others when I see, it's easy to see flaws in other people, but to be realize, no, I'm still in process. God's still working in me. So I'm just agreeing with what you said of like, that desire is to, man, I want to arrive. I want to be there. I would love that my soul is healthy, my body's healthy, my spirit is healthy, but we are all in this process, and that it doesn't stop, and that's okay. And maybe that would be what I would take from what you're saying is, when we feel like we are still in process, to embrace, no, that's okay. That's good. That's actually what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. And it's part of that process. And what I've seen is that process is so beautiful. Like, it's hard, but it's so beautiful. And even when I think of myself in that moment, the humility also too that I gained to say, hey, I need to humble myself in everything that, I may be perceiving and feeling, and come to him. That has been what he said, like, that is gold. Like that, those moments are precious to me. I don't like them, right? And I also, and then so that is a part of, in the sense of the hope, and the hope that we have to offer of saying like, no, I know this is so hard. I know your soul is burdened. I know it's confusing, but this is part of the journey, and there is hope and there is beauty in this process.
So good. So good. What else do you feel like you wish you would have covered?
Yeah, that wasn't. So one thing as well too, and this is, I'm just going to still stay on the sanctification process to clear, because I think it has been helpful for me. But knowing in that part, as we're, saved, walking with the Lord, that part of the process is that, yes, we have the Spirit of God in us, but our soul and our thoughts are in the continual process of being saved.
Yes.
And that no matter where we're at, our journey, our thoughts are going to continue to need to be restored and renewed, especially when we experience some harder things. And those are to bring us more life, right? And so I think, wow, if we're grieving, the achiness of our heart is being able to learn God's achiness for our heart in that. And so we may have these other perspectives, but part of them, our thoughts and our emotions, are continually needing that restoration and that newness, a newness of life. And I think that's maturity of faith, whether we have experienced hardship or maybe not as much hardship. That's part of our maturity as Christ, is that renewing of our soul.
Yeah.
Do you feel like when I look at kind of the Christian journey and faith, and I think sometimes we want to will our thought life into thinking, believing truth that we bypass, like we kind of want to just skip the work, maybe just like, what are the thoughts that I'm supposed to have? What are the right thoughts that I'm supposed to have? And I wonder if it's a way of bypassing doing the work of healing, because it's like we just want to go from something was painful, I just need to have the right thoughts, and then I'll be okay. So I see that, being kind of one train of thought, and I also see another kind of like maybe train of thought that's just kind of ruled by our emotions and our thoughts and our one, in order to like validate them, but then we can kind of just get stuck there in, well, this is what I feel, and so this is my truth. I don't know. So I just love to hear if you have any thoughts on those.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is a part of saying sometimes it is beneficial that we need to move on to point A to point B. So we may have to be like, okay, I have to kind of get my thoughts in order to like maybe go to work, maybe to do the next task. So there's times where there is appropriation for that. In the whole part of doing the classes, that we're dropping down to look inside and saying, okay, God, what's going on here? So if we're noticing, hey, I'm kind of having the same pattern of thoughts over and over again, I may want to examine that a little bit more. So I may want to ask the Lord, why? What's happening there that I'm continually believing this belief or these thought processes? And kind of exploring a little bit more, is there anything else that's connected to that? Right? And the same thing with kind of emotions in some way. Hey, I'm stuck in this emotion, right? Why, what is happening that I keep on getting stuck in this emotion?
Yeah.
Right? And how do we move through? We don't want to, like, same thing, we don't want to cut off all of our thoughts, and we could do that. We could kind of cut off our thoughts, and then we miss out on what is actually happening, right? We could get so overwhelmed with our emotions that we're losing the understanding of what is happening there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what would you maybe say is and maybe this is what your class is going to be, like a roadmap of like, okay, for some of those things, like how to.
Yeah. So I first start out with something just very simple, and sometimes people don't like it because they're like, give me the answer. Like, give me the, like, that's all that you want me to do. And especially if we're finding like we're overwhelmed or we just so much is going on. But I just simply say, why don't you notice when that is happening? Wow, you're having those thoughts. Why don't we step back? And sometimes it's like too much for you know, like I might have a client in a moment, and I said, okay, why don't we just take the next week? Why don't we just notice when you're having those thoughts? Why don't we notice when you're, you know, overwhelmed with that notice? Why don't you notice? And it's amazing when we take off that pressure of saying, hey, let's figure everything out right now. And it's always amazing to see people say like, oh my gosh, guess what, Tina? Like, do you know what? When that happened? Or they'll be like, wow, I was surprised just in a week how many times I, you know, felt so distracted in my thoughts, or I felt so anxious. And that then they're starting to kind of connect these dots of understanding what is happening and then kind of getting to that why. Yeah.
Okay.
As we, you know, even talked about why our souls need care. And so we've been talking about a little bit of our sanctification process, which I love. Actually, you have some quotes here. I'm going to shout out David Powell,
Yeah.
bringing heaven to earth. I was literally reading this yesterday. So anyway, but I love it. You know, the idea that God, he says it, I think this is,
Yeah, can you read that?
Yeah, God is a gardener, not a magician. He plants seeds, he prunes, he waters, and he waits.
Yeah.
And I love that because so often we do want that in the moment. And you've said this, God can do. And I think you've even shared, and you know, we've seen stories and in our own life, moments of immediate transformation. But the general rule is that he is planting and watering and pruning and waiting. And so it is a process, which actually then I think leads to our further maturity because it is slower and it actually gets in us rather than just in a moment, things are different. And then, you know, I just think it's in his brilliance. The Lord knows that that's how we best grow is through that process. So anyway, again, just in the sanctification process, that's part of why we need to take care of our soul is to grow to be more like Jesus, is to grow in our sanctification. And so anyway, I just wanted to shout out David Powell. Go get the book anywhere that you can get the book, Amazon. But I love it. You also talked about the need for it in because often we have a poor theology of suffering.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that?
In the sense of understanding what is sometimes the result of our own sin, right? And that's really hard, sitting with that. We actually need to sit with that. And that, I think that could be really hard for people to kind of sit with that, because we either go to two places at times. We either go to shame ourselves, or we might also go, and this is just a nutshell, I'm not saying, we might also then, because it's so hard to sit with that, we might ignore, deflect, even blame as well too. Because that reality is hard for us to realize that we do sin, and that could cause other people and ourselves hardships. And so that would be one part. Also being the sanctification part, also knowing, like you mentioned, wow, the refining of our faith. The refining of our faith takes that time. It takes that patience that we need, as well as knowing how do we deal. I actually don't even want to use the word deal, but how are we being affected by our pain and the pain of others around us? And understand how to care for ourselves and care for others through it. So I would add that to that part in highlighting, wow, how are we caring for pain in the sense of believing God as still healer and restorer of our souls, and still believing as God as I mentioned, that he could do a miracle, that he does have power and give us a spirit that can help us in our time of need. So, but I would also say this in the sense of that was something that I actually wanted to hear more from the both of you in doing, because for me, coming to that understanding of, wow, this is maybe what I'm seeing a little bit more in counseling, and also just maybe a little bit more in church settings. I'm growing in an understanding of for myself as well too.
Yeah.
Good for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is all of these things we're talking about. When you use words like sanctification, when you use words like pruning, when you use words, I mean, suffering, I mean, we go through stuff. And I think that maybe there's been times when unintentionally and probably well-intentioned, we've wanted to say, oh, disciples of Jesus, Christians, followers of Jesus, life's supposed to be good, happy, everything's okay. And then life hits and things get hard. And how do we deal with that? And I think we see that there's a couple options. One of them is to throw the whole thing out, because I've built my whole worldview on this idea that my life's supposed to get better and better and better, and bad things won't happen to me anymore, or I'm supposed to get all the promotions and all the, and then when things are hard, when it's hard to be a parent, when it's hard in marriage, when it's hard at work, when it's hard in life in general, when sickness hits, and all of a sudden it messes with the way we think. It messes with our emotions. It messes with our desires, our will. And so I just think it's huge for us to have this is what you said, to have the right theology, or because we often have a poor theology. And in that, I believe the foundation of where you talked a lot about, one, I think just God being good.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't mean that life is never hard, but he is good even in the midst of it. And this is what you talked about a lot, was that he loves me. He's for me. And that we have to know, okay, life's hard, God's good, God loves me, that these are truths that will help us be able to navigate the storms of life, that help us be able to navigate when things are difficult, that help us be able to navigate when we haven't arrived. And I'm confronted with my own failure and my own sin, and I'm like, still really this is still something. And so being able to continue to bring that to the Lord, I think is a huge part of our growing to look like him, to walk like him, to live like him.
Yeah. And I think I've seen it, especially in that place of, wow, I'm either experiencing such pain with what I'm going through. I just think of, I've walked with many people who have either been like betrayed by a spouse, and the pain and the reckoning of that, and how do I navigate that now? How am I navigating my sin, sitting with that pain? I just think of as well of grief and the sorrow that we feel, that the depthness of that, and that we could still feel that pain and lean into Jesus, right? And walking through as well as unpacking with somebody who have had sexual assaults or abuse, and as we're unpacking this, such the pain that they're experiencing, but then I could experience this pain, and even though it's messy, I could still pull on that power of Jesus, even though I'm still figuring this all out, and that pain. And I think sometimes we're and for us as just humans, it's hard for us to see other people in pain. So I think sometimes in church and community groups and walking with other people, I think it's hard for us sometimes to know, like, how do I navigate this with another person, right? How do I be with a person, supporting and encouraging them, but also don't allow them, I maybe don't want to say don't allow, but I don't want to see them go down a deep hole, right, of despair and depression. I want to be able to see them. And sometimes that may be, kind of the result of what we have experienced or what we're experiencing in the sense of our mental health. But in that part of that, these are difficult things to be able to figure out and saying, how do we navigate this?
Yeah.
Right. And so what I've maybe seen is saying, oh, like it's been a week already. I'm exaggerating. Like you should be better now. Trust Jesus, move on. Right. I've seen that with people who are struggling with anxiety, and they have said, wow, I think my church has kind of given up on me. They've like prayed for me, and everyone just tells me, just continue to pray and have faith. Like whether like I've been praying, I've been having faith. What do I do? And so they show up to counseling feeling like, wow, I wasn't able to receive that support. And then they think, was I doing anything wrong? And so there's a shame component. And this isn't to, I'm not shaming the church or I think within intention, we're trying to help people, and we may just not know or have all the skills of navigating that. And so that's why I said in the important part of, well, if we're experiencing some of these things that we may need more care, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? It's okay if you're really struggling with anxious thoughts and it's preventing you to function daily. Yes, come, get counseling so you could receive that further support. And you could gain that understanding.
Yeah.
And
How do you think that the church can do better in a scenario like this?
yeah. I think just in a way, if they're noticing, hey, this person is really struggling, having that conversation is saying, hey, we're with you in this. It's okay if you do need further support, and let's do this. This is how we can support you. I think that's really great if that is like, we're going to still be standing with you. We are still going to be praying for you. We do not stop praying, right? We're going to continue to speak life over you. But also it's okay to say as a church that, hey, we may not have the full supports that you need, and that's okay. But this is what we would, what we may suggest or support you in this way. Because I just think of the scripture that it says in Ephesians that when we are experiencing trials and tribulations and that we stand, right? When we are experiencing these schemes of the enemy, we stand. And so I think just stand, like saying, nah, I'm standing with you. But I also want you to have more freedom. And that's okay if that's outside of the church.
I have a question. This is a little bit off book here, so you can just say pass. No, I'm just joking. But what would you say? I think giving people permission, what you just said, it's okay if you need additional help. That is not weakness. That is okay. What would you say? So massive generalizations here. No group of people is a monolith and everyone their own individual and all that. I would say for people my age and older, and specifically probably men, we need to be able to say, hey, it's okay that you need counseling, to see a therapist, to get extra help. That's okay. Yeah. I think my age and younger, and specifically probably women, maybe you need to hear, no, you still need church. Counseling alone isn't the answer. Would you agree with both of those statements or not? And have you seen that? And what do we do? How do we help people see the strength of the supplemental, how these two functions, these two groups, a counselor and church, like how they work together, and rather than trying to do one or the other?
Yeah, and we need both. We need the church. When I have talked to others who's just wanted some counsel regarding understanding counseling, I first always say, well, counseling comes from the Lord. He is the great counselor, right? And so we still need church, a counselor for, if you're seeing a counselor for about like an hour, that is not, what do I always say? That is sufficient in helping us in the healing process. We still need further support, and we still need the body. It's not uncommon that I might say, hey, if I may be seeing, wow, there's, lack in understanding sanctification, if I'm seeing, wow, there needs more growth in understanding the Lord, I will suggest, is there anyone that you could connect with? Is there a mentor? Is there someone at church? Because it can't be fully done within that 50 minutes. And I would say this part of where I generally see people heal and where I see the most fruit is when individuals aren't just showing up to counseling and saying, okay, you figure it out for me. They're actively participating, and they're also doing things outside of our sessions. And that is helping them grow.
Yeah.
But then what I end up seeing is as they're doing that, they're starting to reach out to other people, and that is helping them to grow. I would say there's not one way for healing. I don't believe counseling is the only way we could receive healing. And when we only rely on the counselor, we miss out at other possibilities of growth. That's only one part of the body, right? In seeing that. And I look at my own journey and I've seen, wow, yes, it has been counseling. Wow, sometimes it's been different parts of ministries from the church that I grew in. Sometimes it was mentorship or even a person who just spoken a lot into my life. There's just like a lot of different avenues. But I believe if we're only going to a counselor and I'm just going to be on and we're hanging out with friends, God has so much more for us. He has built this kaleidoscope of a body that he wants us to be a part of and wants to see. Sometimes when we're in a lot of pain, that might be too much. Community might seem like too much. And so sometimes having that safe place as a counselor is what we need in that time. But what my hope is, and where I see, okay, there's starting to be some growth, is when we're starting to connect more and we're starting to branch out and pull people in. So I would say, yes, I see both. We need the body, and we do need counseling.
And maybe where there's been hurt, and why people would say, like, has my church just left me, is because where there's been the idea of, no, this is all what we provide is what you should have, and you should be okay. And instead of what you're saying, giving permission of like, no, it's actually really okay if you need outside other help, So anyway, that's good. Amy, you always have questions.
Well, I love listening to Tina. She has so much to say, and so I think I just want to open it up to you if there's anything else you want to cover or open up. Or...
Yeah, and I think that part of weighing in of there is hope, and hope is in Christ as we're going through this journey of understanding our soul. And it's not a one and done, right? It is a continuation. And he's built us. I think of Psalms 23 of where David says, you restore my soul.
Yes.
That means he does restore. And so knowing that there is so many different ways, and I talk about that in the class as well too, that our body can, our mind, our will and emotions can restore themselves, that could feel more wholeness in relationship to God. And yeah, so I think that part of knowing, hey, there is hope in restoring with God and finding that life where we have maybe felt scattered, and we've maybe felt like we're all alone and we're isolated, that we can come to this place. And God's designed us for that. He has designed our soul to restore, and he wants us to experience that here on earth. And so there's a journeying through of that. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. And it's so worth it. I would say that part of saying, wow, it is just so worth it to be able, of what I said, to take that notice.
Yeah.
To be able to pause for a moment and consider. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Tina, for just taking time and doing this. Would love to. I didn't prepare you for this, so we don't have to do this. We can just end it
Yeah.
right here if we need to.
Yeah.
But you had us end in Psalm 27 and practicing some silence, and that was kind of the practice takeaway.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to maybe hear why we ended there, what it is in silence that is so valuable, and then if you're willing and open to it, let's just go. Let's just do it here. Take 3 minutes or however long, and just in the same prompts that you led us before, just have some stillness and some moments of silence and focusing on the Lord. So, why did we end there? Why did we end in Psalm 27?
Yeah. So, silence being, I talk about, so silence first is a quieting of our soul, right? So that may seem like it contradicts, oh, you're saying, noticing, developing awareness. There is also a part of stilling our mind, our emotions, that is really healthy for us. Our mind is continually wired to stay aware, right? To protect ourselves. So our mind is constantly firing and filing, hey, where do I know that from? Am I safe? So it's constantly alert. And so it's healthy to slow things down and to pause. And spiritually, what that reflects in the Lord, that I say, it's an inward worship. Okay, so at church or in your homes, in your car, whatever like we're doing, when we're listening to worship, it's an outward expression. We're giving like all of our being, which is like the Lord delights in that. But silence is a inward trust that, hey, I don't have to be focused on a to-do list right now. I don't have to worry about the next thing right now. Or I don't have to continually, in the sense of saying, be on with the Lord, right? Like ask of him, or it is saying, hey, God, in my stillness, I trust you. I'm going to surrender my thoughts. I'm going to surrender my will, my emotions. And I'm actually not going to have an agenda. Like I'm not. And there's times where appropriate to seek, right? This is a moment saying, I'm going to trust in the stillness. And so it's finding a focal point of a word like Jesus, Father, whatever is drawing on our heart that feels comfort or sometimes an image of maybe Jesus or the cross that helps us kind of focus in to keep our attention on our aim on him. And yeah, so it's an active inward surrenderance and trust with him. Yeah.
So good. I love it. Good. Well, thank you again for being here, and thanks for doing this. And just want to invite anyone, even as we take the next 3 weeks, jump in and come and be a part of this soul care class. And I think this will be a huge benefit to our community. So thank you, Tina, for being here. Thanks for doing this. And love your heart and all that God's done in you and what you're able to share through that. So appreciate it.
Thanks for being with us at the Boulder Street Conversations podcast. Grateful that you would spend time with us. If you want to get more connected to our church, go to boulderstreet.org/connect. You can send us an email there, sign up for anything that we have. We'd love to get more connected with you. We'd love to see you on Sunday. We meet at 10 a.m. at 828 East Boulder Street.